This week on the flip side,
he's going to tell you about the power of a 5-pound note.
And he's going to tell you how God shows up at Target.
And I'm going to tell you how to have the greatest holiday ever without a dining room table. This week, episode 13, the flip side. Welcome to Flip Side. I'm Pastor Curt, and I'm here for the first time on the show with Mr. Terrence here from our Midtown. What do you do down there in Midtown, Terrence?
Oh man, what do I do? My biggest job is just making sure, I carry Bob and Ephraim's bags.
Yes,
just make sure that they're good, make sure that they're taken care of.
I thought you were going to say, I carry Bob and Ephraim. That's the real thing. No. This guy is the utility infield. He's the frontal lobe of the Midtown campus. Good to have you here, Terrence.
It's so good to be here.
And of course we have your favorite and mine, Pastor Andrew McCourt's with us.
Good to be here, Curt.
Andrew.
And Terrence.
It's good to be here with you, Andrew.
You're like one of my heroes.
Oh, come on.
I got a poster of you just beside my bed. You're just like...
Hope it's my good side.
Wow.
Hope it's my good side.
So we're on episode 13, which has everything to do with attitude, even anxiety. We're going to be talking about how not to be a worrywart, how not to let the holidays, how not to let the stress of life, how not to let your schedule, your kids, your job kind of get you down, how to get the right attitude. But before we do that, we're going to do one of the number one things that adjusts attitude in my life. We're going to have some coffee. Do we got some coffee? Here we got Mr. Dalton.
Yes.
Dalton, what we got here this week?
We're drinking a single origin from Verve, and the tasting notes are melon, huckleberry, and crisp.
Ooh, huckleberry.
Crisp.
It's crisp.
Huckleberry.
What is crisp?
Crisp.
Is it like a cookie?
Kind of like
from
the pie you ate on Thanksgiving. Like the crust.
Right,
Okay.
okay.
I was thinking of cereal. Crisp.
Melon, huckleberry, and crisp.
Well, in the UK and Ireland, crisps are chips.
Yes, they're potato chips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is good. It's good.
One time on St. Patrick's Day, you brought a bunch of liver flavor crisps.
Yeah. Prawn cocktail.
Prawn cocktail.
There were some pickle ones too, weren't there?
Yeah, oh yeah, they're bad. They're good crisps. Good crisps.
I mentioned the idea of anxiety. I'm just going to read a little bit of the passage from this weekend, Philippians 4. Starting verse 6-ish, I'm going to read not the whole thing, but it starts off with this really, really difficult exhortation. Do not be anxious. I don't know if you guys are like me. My favorite sin is worry. I find that when I read that, I just hear, do not itch your mosquito bite. I mean, it's just hard for me. It goes on to say, don't be anxious, but instead add in thanksgiving. And then in verse 8, he adds the real incredible advice. Finally, brothers, Paul says, and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. In other words, Paul's saying, your thoughts create your attitude, and your attitude is everything. We mentioned 3 big thoughts that lead to attitudes this weekend. We talked about gratitude, we talked about love, and we talked about sacrifice. I just want to start off with you, Andrew. When you are in leadership, when you're in ministry, when you're in a marriage for any amount of time, what happens is it's hard to be grateful. Even if you are blessed, what happens is your mind collects all of the hurts and the wrongs and the disappointments, especially in leadership and especially in close relationships. And what I think happens is it turns us all into grumpy old men. Cynicism grows naturally. Gratitude must be cultivated. So here's the $5,000 question. What do you do as a leader, Andrew, to cultivate gratitude in your life?
Yeah, well, a few weeks ago I talked about the evolution of spiritual man. And it starts out normally with ideal young man. And I'm going to speak to all the guys, especially here for a moment. It starts out with ideal young man. He's at college, he's new in the job or career, his startup, he's with his buddies, they're praying, they're going to change the world. But fast forward in the spiritual evolution of Christian man, then you end up either legacy man, the grandfather that everybody loves and the kids want to come to, or grumpy old man. And it's all about the choices we make as middle-aged man. Just what do we do between ideal man and becoming legacy man? It's middle-aged man, and it's about choosing our attitude. And I love the way you read it there, and the way Paul jumps in, do not be anxious about anything. I think what I've discovered in life, and I was thinking about this a couple of years ago, we were doing the series on This Is Us. We were looking at Abraham, how to overcome a spiritual panic attack. That's what we were talking about. And at the heart of worry, well, what is it? And for me, I just looked at it and suddenly thought, my anxiety, it's about God. I'm actually worried, not about the issue, I'm worried about God.
Yes, this is such a great theological idea. It's an expression of what we really believe about God.
Exactly.
So what's the remedy? What did you?
Well, I thought,
I listened to that sermon, but I've already forgotten what you told me to do.
Well, it was simply, I'm going, well, I thought I was worried about this, I thought I was worried about that, but if I get that fixed, or if I overcome that situation, well, the next thing is going to come up. And I thought all of these things are just symptoms about the real root of worry, and that is, I'm worried about God. Will God come through? And for Abraham, he was worried, will God really give me a son? Then he thought, I'm going to fix this for God. He was really worried about God. So what I got to do in my life is change the whole worry aspect, put faith high, fear low, focus on God, and start turning my heart towards gratitude for not focusing on the problems, but focusing on the joy of everything that I have. Like a simple thing happened the other day. I had my cell phone, I dropped it on the ground, and just immediately I thought to myself, I've smashed the screen. You know, you just know that's a thud.
The heart just dropped.
This is hundreds of dollars.
You feel cash flying out of your body.
Yeah, first world problems. But the phone has gone, it's hit the floor, and I'm dreading turning it over. You know, I turn it over, and it's intact. The case has done its job, screen protector has worked, and I'm like, oh, thank you, Lord, that's so good. I walk away and I think, whoa, because if the screen had smashed, I'd have been, I can't believe it, this is awful, this is dreadful. I smashed my phone, and this is going to cost me so much. It really would have affected me, not just for the next 10 minutes, but for the next 30 minutes, for an hour. I'd have had to get an appointment at the mall, I'd have been telling everyone, I smashed my phone today.
Lord? Why,
Lord? All of
this
this here, and people praying for me at that moment, and I thought, my reaction to bad news is so disproportionate compared to when it wasn't smashed. I should have been going all day, God, thank you that my phone is intact. Lord, you protected my phone. But but when good things happen, I go, oh, thank goodness that didn't happen. When bad things happen, I'm like on a downer, and this is the problem in my life. My praise doesn't match my problems.
Oh, come on, Andrew.
My praise doesn't match my problems. And
Dalton, I want you to come to the piano right now. We're going to give an altar call. My praise doesn't match my problems.
When bad things happen, I overreact. When good things happen, I underreact.
That's brilliant. I wanted to say a couple things you remind me of, and I want to turn the question on to Terrence. I worked in a nursing home 2 summers. And this is what I learned. At the end of life, in your late 80s and 90s, there are 2 types of people. Absolutely rotten, absolutely wonderful. I mean, you find people, they are on dialysis, they've got all sorts of problems with their heart and their skin and their family and their money and their relatives, but they're golden.
Yeah.
You would walk in the room and they'd say, how are you doing today? Are you doing good? How can I pray for you? Loving, kind. You would see people that were 30, 40-year-old friends would visit them the regular, and people that were 3- and 4-day friends would come and visit them. Their rooms were full of life. And you would see other people. This one lady, I remember, her daughter was the only one who visited her, and grudgingly, and it was a burden for the daughter because she left upset every time. And she was in good health, very good health for someone in her late 80s, but you couldn't get her pillow right. And you'd watch this pillow, and her whole life was destroyed. And I was like, you poor woman, you've got all the finances. Your daughter comes to visit you, and she's miserable. At the end, the middle man leading to the legacy. That's such a brilliant true thought. The decisions we're making now will, whether we give in to cynicism or we give in to gratitude. It's very good. T, let me just turn it on you. What do you, practically though, that's a deep theological idea.
Got
in
me.
the real world of phones actually do break, and disappointment in relationships and expectations and everything that goes on in life. I mean, we live in a very broken, divided world. How do you keep the cynicism at bay and stay grateful?
For me, I think how I personally stay grateful is always looking back at how far God has brought me, what God has done in my life. Because I think as you get rolling in life and as time, we're getting ready to celebrate Christmas, and you ask anybody, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe Christmas is already here. Like the year's already gone. And for me, there's a lot of times I've got to pause, literally stop myself and think about where God's brought me and what God's done in my life. And then when you start thinking about all the good things that God has done in your life, you can't help but be grateful. And that's where, Andrew talked about the praise and the problem. All of a sudden, you have this outpouring of praise in your life because you start remembering that, man, like I'm where I am, not because of anything that I'm done. I am where I am by the grace of God. And then you start thinking about your family, and I think my mom and just how my mom has raised two strong Christian young men, and I'm just like, that is by the grace of God. That my mom has two African-American boys who have graduated from college, who are in their careers. That is by the grace of God.
I need a tambourine.
Right. You just start thinking about that.
And mom available to lay hands on my children?
She will. I'll call her right now. But no, when you take that pause and you start thinking through, like, man, I'm able to do this not because of anything that I've done, but I'm able to do this because of the grace of God.
This is an extremely biblical idea, because if you look at the Old Testament, a lot of times we'll get so verse by verse, we miss some of the sweeping themes. And one of the sweeping things of the Old Testament is this remembering the major miracles and deliverances of the Lord. He is the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. That's a recounting not of names, but of the deliverance of those names. And the setting up of memorials. Bethel is a major moment in the Old Testament where they said, we cannot forget what God did here. We cannot forget what God did here. That theme, it's a big 50,000 foot thing that you don't get unless you read the Old Testament like in a survey way. That theme of don't forget the past deliverance, because that's your key to believing in the future deliverance. And I say the other thing that's really important about all that is sometimes we get so focused on how far we have to go, we forget how far we've come. We forget what we were like. I tell people all the time that are single, I say, listen, Kelly would have never married the me of high school and college, early college. She'd have never married the me of high school and early college, because she'd have been smart and discerning and wise and godly. God just did this amazing transformation. Therefore, don't count people out. God's still transforming them. And don't count yourself out. God's still transforming you and changing you. You got a long ways to go, but you've come a long ways. It's one of those powerful thoughts that helps. So one of the ideas we talked about this weekend is, I just love 1 Corinthians 13. And the reason I love it is it's the ultimate attitude changer, in that it's written to a church, a whole church with a bad attitude, 1 Corinthians. I love the correction of teaching this passage, because it's so often, the language is so powerful, we've Pinterested it. We've put it on doilies and greeting cards. Love is kind, love is doesn't keep a record of wrongs and all this. But if you do that, you take it out of context. It is brought to a group of people that are so much into their own preference and their own notoriety that they have stopped loving even though they're Christians. In the midst of that, Paul rebukes them with this beautiful chapter and tells them, change your attitude, an attitude of love. And he says this, it's the ultimate rebuke. If you don't love, you're nothing. I don't care what you've accomplished, what positions or possessions you have. Your life is nothing. I love that because it's a simple moral evaluator of our life. Would everyone around me say, you're about love? If not, you're nothing. The opposite also being true. So here's my question to you guys on this. We do a lot at Bayside that's big. We go, hey, let's go change human trafficking in Cambodia. Let's sponsor 5,000 kids with Compassion International. in a real micro way, how do you live out 1 Corinthians 13? How do you go and just love on people in ways that are maybe never seen, that are not these big, huge project things, but just you're shopping, you're in meetings at work. How do you love people in the micro?
Yeah. Well, I would call it the go full Bob Goff on them. You know, I always ask, what would Jesus do first and what would Bob Goff do second? It's a powerful principle. And I look also at people in my life, back to the do not be anxious. When I look at those people that are especially close to me and they're anxious, I suppose one of the first questions I got to ask, is my love for them enough at this moment in time? Are they really feeling my love? Is part of their anxiety my problem, and that I haven't loved them enough, that they don't feel secure enough? And so I just think if I up my love levels to those that are in close proximity to me, to Isabel, the kids, to my work colleagues, if I'm coming in thinking my one goal today is to love on people, make sure that they feel okay, I'm sure my love levels are going to go up and their anxiety levels are going to go down. I think it's just being so intentional.
Terrence, what do you do? Everyone in Midtown loves you.
No, yeah.
It's the truth.
Oh, yeah. Maybe. But, you know, for me, I think it's just, you know, one, I love what you just said, because when our love level goes up, I think what it also does is causes other people's love levels to go up.
Yes.
Because they're like, oh, wait, like,
The
I can
attitude
do
that
that.
shifts attitudes.
Like, I can love also. But it's also, you know, for me, is just going back to even the thing we were talking about is slowing down. You know, it's just, we run so fast, we run so hard. And even for me, just asking God, just like, Lord, how can I love just on your people today? Just, Lord, give me just a practical, and I'll never forget, I've told this story so many times, was in Target. I mean, you know, everyone loves Target. And I was getting ready, I was at the check stand, and the lady, she was moving super slow. And I mean, I was frustrated because I'm like, okay, look, this is the holiday season. You need to hurry up. Like, this is the 5 item or less line. That means you move fast. But she wasn't. And as I was standing there, I was like, come, this lady's got to hurry up. And as I was saying, the Lord was like, she needs to know my love today.
See, this is a perfect example I'm talking about.
And I'm
That's
like,
the micro.
And I'm like, what in the world? Like, okay, Lord, like what? And so I really felt the Lord was like, Terrence, tell her that I love her. And I literally, like, it seemed like it was 30 minutes, but I'm having this argument with the Lord, like, no, I can't do that because I'm going to tell her that you love her, and then she's going to tell me something else, and it's going to be this long, drawn-out thing, and we're going back and forth. And so finally, she's giving me my receipt, and all I could do was mutter out, like, hey, I just want you to know Jesus loves you. And she was like, what did you say? And I was like, oh, my gosh, I got to say it again. And I was like, hey, just want you to know Jesus loves you. She paused. And all of a sudden, her eyes just welled up with tears. And I'm like, see, now she's mad at me because now I brought up some bad stuff in her life. And everyone in line's mad at me now because I'm taking up their time. And she says, you know, when I pulled into work today, she goes, I was running late for work, dropping off the kids, having issues at home. And before I walked into work today, I asked God, I need you to show me today that you love me.
Wow, that's so good.
And of course, I'm standing there like, okay, Terrence, you were almost disobedient, and it would have messed up this whole thing. But probably the next person would have told him that God loved her. But
then you started going down the line.
Krista from Midtown was in line behind you.
Krista was right behind me. Probably made up for all my. But just it's that practical of
I think that's
really
so
just being aware of just the people that are around you. Like you said, we live in a broken world. People are hurting. People are discouraged, and so we have something that we can give to people, and that's just the love of God. And the love of God is the cure to everything.
Do you know what I think you did there that's really powerful? That everything in our world works against us doing this. You laid down your preference. Your preference was my schedule. Your preference was the amount of time I sit in this line board. And it took an act of your will to go, her preference.
Right.
You know, love is the surrendering of our preference. And here's the crazy thing. Our world is so aimed at preference right now. I blame Burger King. You know, in the 70s they had that commercial, have it your way.
Get it your way.
All of a sudden you could order with pickles or without pickles, and now it's just gone all Chipotle. Everyone is choosing exactly what they want. No one is actually, like think about this. A chef trains to be, she's like incredibly trained to fix you the best meal ever, but you go in there and say, no, I don't want it your way with all your training. I want it my way because my mom made me mac and cheese as a kid that was, you know, not even Kraft, it was generic. So I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to have it my way.
Right.
And what happens with preference is it eventually isolates us. we get this thing where we go, I got my whole list of preference. Here's how I like my social media, my clothing, my style, my voting, my this and that. And it's the opposite of diversity. It isolates us and goes, I'm spending my whole life looking for the people with my exact list of preferences. It's impossible to find. My group, even when I find my group, we're all arguing about this micro preferences that we have. And I found I'm really lonely and empty and sad and depressed. As opposed to, I'm just going to lay down 2 little preferences. The amount of time I'm in this line and my schedule. And look this lady in the eye and tell her. And look at how much joy. And you preach that several times. It makes you look good as a preacher.
And it's all story. Anytime you go somewhere,
the benefits are, and it's just laying down your preferences. I was in my small group last night, and the small group leader asked this question. He said, what do you do to your kids because your parents didn't do it in your house? And I thought that was just really telling. We had this really interesting conversation. Then at the end, someone turned it and said, what will your kids say that you didn't do enough?
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
And I thought of a couple things, but you know what I really thought was like, I just need to ask them. I used to ask them, like, how can I love you better? How can I love you better? Give me some feedback. I really liked what you were saying in terms of just changing that mindset of going, I'm going to go in there and see them and look at them. But even just talk to them and say,
that's good. Because
I want to love you. Tell me.
We have a staff member, his name's Judd, and he was speaking to our Granite Bay staff recently, and he just went to his wife because he knows he's a stupid guy like the rest of us, and just said, if I were to be a far better husband and if I were to love you a lot more, what would it look like? Could you write me a list? And she did. She wrote down 10 things, and he said, do them like in order of importance. And he said, well, I looked at the 10, I thought, I'm not going to be really good at doing all 10. I'm going to focus on the top 3. Wow. What are the most important things that I can help you with? And he said that he already had a good marriage, but it went to a great marriage. And then he started doing that with his kids. And it was like an aha moment in our staff meeting, and I was glad Isabel was there, and I'm just hoping she brings a list soon.
I thought you were going to say that you had your list prepared for her. Isabel, here it is.
So I just thought that was excellent.
It's just going,
it's being practical.
Instead of my list, it's about your list. And the second you become a your list person, you've had an attitude change. That keeps cynicism at bay and really lives out authentic Christianity. Okay, so here's my little premise from this weekend. The way I did the sermon is, if you start seeing the power of gratitude, it does remind you that God is powerful enough to bring you through everything. Gratitude, it's, the why behind gratitude is that it strengthens you for the challenge. Then you become a person that's got a loving attitude. I'm giving up on the exhausting, unwinnable journey of my preferences. And I'm going to look at other people and I'm going to love them. The only thing that can happen next, if you adopt those 2 attitudes, is that you'll start giving stuff away. Yourself, your possessions, your talents, your time. Then you move into sacrifice. And this is the clearest biblical theme in this attitude discussion, is that if you lay down your life, you live. Jesus laid down his life, the Bible says. We got to lay down our lives. Those that are still living for themselves are not truly alive. I was thinking about this as we were talking as a family over a meal this week. Our best family memories are when we made a sacrifice. All of the ones we go, like, we'll laugh about this story or that story, but the ones that my kids want to tell over and over again, and it's usually about Kelly. One of the holiday season, you guys have both heard this story, but I'll tell it again. There was a neighbor family next to us, different cultural background. They were a blended family. We're not. All sorts of cultural things between us, not the same. And my wife, she's just this way. She starts going and reaching out to them and loving on them and doing this. And pretty soon their little girls are over at our house and our little girls over at their house. And I showed up from one particularly long road trip. I was away and I was getting ready to come home, take some time off for the holidays. I walk in the living room, our brand new dining room table. Like one of the biggest things we had purchased, we had no money. It's gone. It's gone.
Wow.
And I'm like, did the kids break it? What happened to the dining room? It's a big, huge gap right there. She goes, no, give it to the neighbors. I said, well, why did you give our dining room table to neighbors? Well, they didn't have one. Well, now we don't have one.
We don't have.
We've not increased the amount of dining room tables. We've just switched. She goes, yeah. And I'll never forget, she looked at me, she said, yeah, but we're Christians.
Oh, wow.
And we sat on the floor that Thanksgiving, and it's my kid's favorite Thanksgiving.
Wow.
We put the tablecloth on the carpet. It was all sitting on the ground, eating like we're in the Near East 2,000 years ago, and it's their very favorite. And of course we got another dining room table. Of course God provided and blessed us. When we walk in sacrifice, it creates the most special moments of our lives. I want to know, Andrew, Terrence, do either of you got a story like that where you just went, this little bit of sacrifice that was given to me that I was a part of, it really created a different level of attitude in my life?
Well, just recently I was going through some old stuff and this note came out and it went back to my days at Bible college. And it was a letter from my mom, just a simple letter, short, 1 page, how you doing, son, whatever. And she said, oh, and here's a £5 note. And I know, it wasn't a big amount, but I know it was a sacrifice. And suddenly all the emotions with that came rushing through. So if someone gave me £5 today, I'd be, that's nice, but it would barely get you a Starbucks. But back then, I remember when she used to do it regular, and it was a regular sacrifice. And suddenly all the emotions came rushing back to me of a mom who just lived sacrificially and the impact that has upon your life. And I think sometimes we're thinking, well, dining room table, that's pretty incredible actually. But it doesn't always have to be as big. And I thank God for people that do that and for Kelly who shows us all up. She's incredible. But I think it's just sometimes the small, consistent, sacrificial thing that really makes the long impact in our lives.
Absolutely true.
It's that aspect of sacrifice. You learn a lot from kids. Kids, they are, when you look at sacrifice, we had this little girl at church who, there was some type of baby doll last Christmas. It was one, I don't know if it wet itself or something. There was this popular doll. And so she wanted this doll, and so her...
So let me get this straight. You're not up on all the different types of dolls.
No, I don't watch the YouTube videos. I should start a YouTube channel about that. Adults experiencing toys.
A popular doll.
Yeah, so it was a popular doll.
Cabbage Patchy.
Something.
Okay,
something.
I got you. I'm with you.
And so this, one of the girls at our church, we were donating a bunch of gifts, and she told her mom that she wanted this doll. And so her mom gets it for her, but then this girl realizes that, I need to give this doll away. And it was a popular, like one of those dolls where, every parent was looking for this doll. And so it gets donated to us, and Krista Armstead, our worship pastor, who just has I think the Lord speaks to her more than anyone else. She follows his instructions all the time. And while our security guard was outside, and Krista was like, I think I'm supposed to give him that doll that's in our office. So Krista puts it in a bag, gives it to him, and she's like, here, Dashir, here's the doll, and I just really feel like I should give you this. He opens it, and he's just in shock because it's the doll that his daughter had been asking for, and he was trying to figure out how he was going to buy her one for Christmas. Wow. But it was through the sacrifice of a little girl and then the obedience of someone else, just that it just all came together and just was amazing.
You can't.
See, kids are just amazing.
Amen. So, gratitude and love and sacrifice is nothing like super genius about any of those, but they really are game changers. And let me just say something directly to you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I want you to be encouraged this week. You've come so far. Don't forget. When you see how far you have to go, don't forget how God has brought you so far. Be grateful for that. Spread the love, and even think of a way, just a £5 note way or one sacrificial gift way to express that gratitude and love, and just even a micro sacrifice for someone around you. If you do, it'll make all the difference in the world. Hey, and do a little thing for me, would you? We want to get this idea of studying, living, learning, going deeper into the Bible, into our everyday life. And part of the ways we do that is the flip side. If you could like or share or subscribe. Now, actually, check that. Like, share, and subscribe. Do all three. Send this to a friend right now. Think of someone who just needs, well, a little encouragement to know that, they've come a long ways, even if they have to go a long way. Share it right now with them. And thanks again for tuning in to The Flip Side.